This weekend, the Trackmania Grand League World Cup will take place, and then 8 players will play in the in the playoff date at July 4th, and then 4 players will play in the grand final. One of the voices for this upcoming weekend is Medic. He's a new face in the Trackmania scene, and he has already casted the Open Qualifier. Medic, welcome to the channel for the first
Hey.
time. Welcome to the Trackmania community. How is everything doing, Medic?
Uh, Generally in life, I think things are okay. I just had my second vaccination, so I'm feeling a little groggy. But apart from that, things are going well. In Trackmania, things are going well as well. New update is a lot of fun to play. My only frustration is I was trying to set a one-shot time on Ghost, and
Oof.
now Ghost is pretty broken. So I have to settle for my 7-minute time as my best.
Oh, life is hard, no?
Yeah, really hard, right?
But yeah, like I said, this is the first time that you are on this channel. You are a new face in the Trackmania community. I am a guy who is basically only follow one esport, that is Trackmania, and I have to then assume that other people do the same. So can you allow yourself to, who are you? Who are you in the esport world? Who are you personal wise? And how on earth did you end up in a small community like Trackmania?
We'll do a quick summary of who I am as a person. I'm Medic or Aaron Chamberlain. I was born in the UK but grew up in India. I went to medical school for university and worked as a doctor in the UK for a year before quitting to become a full-time caster. I started casting Vainglory originally and then moved on to League of Legends, and I now cast the LEC, which is the biggest European League of Legends tournament. Getting into Trackmania, I've been speedrunning Hades since the end of last year and started getting, as most people who are into Trackmania these days had virtual recommendations on YouTube. And I started watching it. I was like, oh, this looks like speedrunning, but, just in cars. So I started playing, and I've been playing for about a month and a half, 2 months now.
Hmm. But can you tell us how did you end up in a casting slot for that open qualifier? How do you go from being a big caster in another esport that is way bigger than Trackmania to now casting essentially the biggest tournament Trackmania has, at least the most prestigious one?
I think first off, I'm very fortunate to have been given the opportunity. Like it's not something I really expected to happen, and once again, it's through Virtual. He and
Mm.
I chatted a little bit. I was in his streams. He was teaching people. He jumped into my streams and taught me how to play some things. And I'm freelance with the LEC, so I'm just a day hire for them. And Virtual messaged me, was like, "Hey, the World Cup qualifiers are coming up. Would you be interested in casting it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. I love casting any games really, but Trackmania especially is just it's so intense at the high end, and it's like it really suits my style of casting. I just like this rap god speed, get as many words in there as quickly as you can, and then you see the result. So I was, yeah, Virtual was very kind to reach out to me, and thankfully Nadeo were happy enough to have me on board.
Mm. But where you mentioned that you are you surprised that just you basically went from casting zero events in Trackmania to now casting the World
Yeah.
Championship? Is it like, did you expect to slide straight into like the biggest spotlight that Trackmania has to offer?
I don't think you can ever expect that. Like
No.
I know I'm a good caster, right? I
Mm.
know I make a living off it, and I cast League of Legends, which is like the biggest esport in the world, at a very high level. So I know that my mechanics are good, but I think if you ever come into a new game or a new sport thinking, oh, I'm going to take this by storm, and you refuse to learn from the people who've been around for a while, you set yourself up for failure.
Mm.
But you don't endear yourself with the community, right? So even before I knew I was casting anything with Trackmania, I was in multiple different streams. I watched Virtual and Geek do the Twitch Rivals event. I was absorbing as much Trackmania as I could because I wanted to become part of the community rather than I saw it as a business opportunity. Because honestly, like it is a lot of fun casting Trackmania, but compared to League of Legends, it's not a business opportunity for me. This is very much
Yeah.
I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it rather than I think I can make a full-time living casting Trackmania.
Mm. Yeah, you mentioned that you are new to Trackmania, at least compared to, let's say, your co-caster Virtual. But how do you then do the research? Because the people that once they saw the announcement, it was a lot of hype. People have seen you casting in the League of Legends, so they have expectation for what a professional caster like you will bring. How do you live up to that expectations? How is the days leading up to a tournament like that looking for you?
I think it's always really tough when you're trying to translate skills from another esport into like Trackmania. For this example, I want to say 100, 120 hours in the month before the World Cup qualifiers, just playing the campaign. I got all the ATs in about 80 hours or so of playing, and then all my free time that I wasn't doing League of Legends stuff, I would be in people's streams. So I watched Scrappy, I watched Spam, I watched Massa, I watched Mudder, I watched like every stream I could. I mean, I think I watched Link in French for a while, even though my French is awful, right? Like I was just absorbing all of the Trackmania content that I could, because I think the thing with a baseline cast for Trackmania is it's actually relatively simple to
Yeah.
say what's happening on the screen, right? It's like, oh, Master is a 10th ahead. This guy's 100th behind. They go over the turbo. Oh, look who finished first, right? But what you really want is the little tidbits of knowledge, like knowing that Master thinks the drift on a certain map is the hardest corner in the maps, or of all the maps, right? Or knowing that if you have this amount of speed, you hit the jump properly on reversing. Otherwise, you don't hit it, right? So I spent a lot of time in people's streams, and then Virtual and I went through the maps beforehand as well, and he guided me through and was like, hey, I think this corner is really important. If you see someone take this jump, they're probably going to gain a 10th. And those little things really help elevate a cast, in my opinion.
But now you have casted Trackmania, you have casted open qualifiers. How was the receivement from the Trackmania community? How did the people of Trackmania receive a new face in their community?
I think the Trackmania community is incredible. Like, just being part of it, and the reception I got was amazing. I had lots of people jump into my stream and be like, hey, you did a great job. Or if I'm in someone else's stream, they're like, oh, it was a really good cast. Love to see you cast cast the actual World Cup, not just the qualifiers. And obviously now that's happening, which is great. And I think like it's always really difficult because I really didn't want to step on any toes when I came in. And I there's always that little feeling of sadness for me that there are other casters in Trackmania, and I listen to them and they're very good. And so for me to take this opportunity away from them does feel bad, which is why I put in so much more work to make sure that I do a good job. Otherwise, it would just, you'd feel so wrong taking an opportunity from someone that's worked for it for a while.
Yeah, because that is, let's say, a question that is probably hard for you to answer, but maybe a question the community and maybe Ubisoft and Deo should think about. Should we start to build up own talents, or should we hire in talents like yourself to bring in more spotlight to a game that desperately needs spotlight? We need both things. We need upcoming talents from our own community. We also need more spotlight itself. How do you see that sort of from maybe an outside perspective into our community?
It is really tough because you have it in. I'm going to use League of Legends as the example because that's like my home field, right? But for example, in the LEC, if we only hired casters that were good in other regions and we only brought in the best LPL caster or the best LCS caster or the best LCK caster, you get a lot of diverse views and a lot of diverse opinions, but you don't have that natural audience growth that you would have with someone who's embedded in the community, right? But if you slowly develop someone up through the regional leagues into the LEC, then you have someone who is much more embedded in the scene. So from a standpoint on who will long-term make a stronger caster, I think building up people in the scene will long-term make you stronger casters. However, from a business point of view, as you say, bringing in someone that has a wider audience or wider reach definitely has its benefits. And obviously I'm on the receiving end of those benefits, so it is hard for me to talk about, but like honestly I do feel bad that I've taken positions away from other people, and I only hope that I can work with either with Nadeo or with those people themselves and be like, hey, if you want to talk casting, let's talk, because I'm always happy to talk about this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not scared about flaming Nadeo if they do something wrong and if they hire people.
Oh, you
just
definitely should.
But
Definitely
for this instance, I mean, the receivement the community has given you, and I was like, okay, is it just gonna be like a hype guy to come in? But the professionality I saw in your cast, and I said it before this interview started, that it's hard for me to listen about who has been in the scene the longest. Is it Virtual or is it Medic? And it's not to talk down about Virtual. I mean, he is arguably the greatest caster in the game, so. You have taken the opportunity with great respect, and I think that is why the people of Trackmania treat you well. Because if you just taken it like, yeah, I'm a League of Legends guy, look at me, it's now I'm coming into a small game like Trackmania, the community will flame you. So that the community that they have received you that well, you should really take that as a big accomplishment or a big sign of respect.
I do really appreciate it, and
Mm,
it is part of the reason I put in the work that I do
mm,
is because I think as well, if Trackmania had just come to me blind and I hadn't played the game before or something, maybe the way I approached it would have been different. But I love
yeah.
the game, right? It's incredibly fun to play, and so me putting the hours in to play it and to watch people play it never felt like an investment. It almost felt like League of Legends did when I started casting, which is like it was a hobby that was really fun, and there were opportunities that I could do stuff in it, right?
Mm.
Whereas now League of Legends is like my job and Trackmania is what I go to when I want to get away from League of Legends. So,
If you have to say anything from, I think the hardcore community and the sort of esports scene of Trackmania, they have been in this game for so long that it's hard for us to see what our bubble look like from the outside. So, I mean, you are probably the perfect guy to ask because you are so new and you're still already within the hardcore scene. So, what is your first impression? What has been like the main takeaways from your time entering into this community?
do you want my takeaway on the community itself or on Trackmania and Trackmania esports?
Both. I mean, you can. What is basically if you have to sum up Trackmania to a friend? What is the takeaways?
I think Trackmania, like the community is, as I've said, is incredibly welcoming,
Mm,
incredibly kind. And what I really like with the community is there's a lot of gamers and gaming communities where people try to tell you exactly what to do from the get-go. And instead of doing that, I was always given advice in, hey, you could do it this way. And then I'd be like, no, I think this way is quicker. I'm going to not drift here. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, you try that. And then 20 minutes down the line, I'm like, oh, wait, maybe your way is actually right. But they let you learn at your own pace.
yeah.
And there's not that degree of negativity that perhaps there are, or backseating, I guess, that
Mm,
there are in other communities. I think from an esports point of view, it's still very fresh, even though it has been around for a while, as you say. It had a very dedicated, close-knit, small community, and now you're starting to see it push the boundaries just that little bit more. Like, assuming that Nadeo keeps investing the way they seem to be investing right now, I could see it growing into, and I'm going to use a tier idea here, and I mean no offense by the tiers I put things in, right? But if you have A tier is League of
yeah.
Legends, Overwatch, CS:GO, Dota, right? B tier is your Rocket Leagues, Hearth, maybe not Hearthstone, but like
Yeah.
that sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
games. Trackmania is developing into a C tier esport right now,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And if over the next couple of years you can continue that growth, go from 10,000, 15,000 people watching the World Cup to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50, it's definitely doable. It's just about whether or not the Nadeo want to invest in the way that you'd have to have that growth, and whether or not you're going to get organizations investing in that way as well.
Mm.
Because you are starting to see it in games like FIFA and in sim racing, where G2 pick up players and Fnatic pick up players and Team Liquid pick up players. That's really where your investment starts snowballing. So,
Mm. Enough about you. Now it's time to talk about the World Cup that is coming up. 16
do it.
of the best players in the world are taking part. Do you have a feeling about what you can expect from a World Cup? Do you have any ideas about who you should look as the biggest favorites? What is your feeling heading into this World Cup and what you can expect?
I mean, if you ask someone the question about the biggest favorites and they don't say Pac and Carl Jr., are they have they really been doing their research? But, I mean, those guys have to be the favorites. What I really like about this World Cup is I'm pretty sure we have the previous four world champions all competing, right? You've got Carl, Pac, Kappa, and who was the other one?
Spam.
Spam.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, it's because in my head he's Spammy because of his
Ah,
Twitch
yeah.
name. Yeah, and Spam, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to the level of competition. I've also been watching Massa practice a lot, and I think he's actually doing really well. He's got the world record times on the two new maps that we didn't see in the qualifiers as well. So the level of competition is always going to be exceptional when you get to the World Cup, and from what I can see, everyone is putting in a lot of hours of grind and a lot of hours of work as well. So I'm excited. I will say this is where you notice the virtuals versus the medics answers, which is, hey, there's a lot of cool players compared to virtual perhaps doing some analysis. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. I think we're going to see some very close races.
Hmm. You're going to be the voice of this event together with Virtual. Can you tell people why should they tune into this? If there is the first time, if there is their 10th World Championship, why should they tune in and what can they expect from this show?
Oh my goodness. Why should you tune in? So Trackmania is the most digestible, easiest to watch, most intense game you will see on Twitch. It's so easy to understand the basics of it and so enjoyable to see the skill that these guys possess. And if you ever wonder about how much skill they've got, just jump in, free to play, jump on one of the World Cup maps and try and get to the first checkpoint. Because I bet you can't on your first try. It is so difficult to play to the level these guys play at, and it's so enjoyable to watch them go fast.
Thank you so much for stepping up and doing this interview. You are a true professional both on screen and off screen, and best of luck to you and Wirtual in this upcoming weekend. Thanks a lot, Medic.
Thank you so much for having me.